Hi everyone, it's Linda from LyndaCreates, and I have a special project for the month of May. It will probably be a two-part project. Anyway, let me backtrack a little bit. These are fabrics that I thrifted. Some are, I believe, actual vintage Japanese fabrics, and some are more modern. I think these are a little more modern, I believe. The others may or may not be old. This one I believe is old. I don't know. I'm just gathering them together because they are some beautiful representatives of the Japanese culture, which I am Japanese American, so it is my heritage. So I'm going to make some Japanese rice bags, or as they're called, Komebukuro. I hope that's pronounced right. Born and raised here, so I don't know the exact pronunciation. But what I want to do, which I thought was extra special too, because this is the month of May, which is also Mother's Day month, is that I'm going to incorporate a couple of fabrics, pieces of fabrics that were from my mother. And these were probably used more as dish towels than anything else. I remember them around the house. They weren't as anything other than like either wrapping something up or cleaning something. So some of them are a little stained, but I thought this was really fun. There's birds. Looks like a hammer for making mochi, the rice cakes. There's like a temple and a house with trees. There's different symbols on it. Oh, okay. There's a fan and a sword. These, I believe, are gourds. So I'm not sure about a lot of the items on this. And, oh, looks like there's a samurai right here. I see the boots. So I'm not sure what all of these symbols are, but this was a piece of fabric that my mom had, and I found it. Oh, there's a woman in a kimono. Anyway, but I found it in a box of some ceramics that she had wrapped up and stored away. So I just pulled it out because it was fabric. And then there was this other one, which isn't as printed, isn't as embellished as that one. But it has like some symbols. I'm guessing this is a bowl, but I don't know. There's a little bit of writing like in the corners, kind of faded. There's that, and then there's some writing there. And this, just by the size, it looks like it was a dish towel. So just like the other one. So what I want to do is incorporate these fabrics, which I know are older, at least vintage, and they're from Japan. So I want to incorporate these into my Japanese rice bag and see what I get. And I'm planning, I know I want to do one bag, but because I had so many fabrics, I may end up doing two. So this is the inspiration. Let me show you how I'm making this. One bag is going to be more the blue, the darker blue color and white, a little bit of tan, and I'll bring in some tan again here. And I have this fabric that's going to match with that. And I have a little scrap of something. I don't think this is old. It's printed. I may use this as an accent piece. I don't know. So that's going to be one bag. The second bag will be more of the blacks and tans. So I'm thinking something like these colors. This might just be an accent, and then I'll use this pattern in there as well to bring in something of my mother's fabrics in there. So just wanted to show the two sets that I'm planning on. And I think I'll start with the blue one first. So the lining was a piece that's going to be the largest. It needs to be 24.5 inches wide by 8 inches high. Now, I went through both sets that I had of fabrics and selected the largest piece because I knew I'd be able to get the 24 inches. So this was the largest one on, I'll call it the blue bag. And this was the largest piece on the black bag. But I discovered something interesting. I thrifted this at a different time, and it was, I believe it was a freebie fabric that was just a giveaway. Someone didn't want it. And I thought, oh, it looks very Japanesey, as I called it. And I didn't think anything more of it, and I decided to add it to this collection. But I discovered something as I was getting ready to measure it. Let me show you. This is, I love how I discovered this. If I can find it again. Okay, so here's the fabric. Unfolding it, and I saw, can you see this tear right here, or this cut? Okay, there's a cut right there. But if you notice, it has been somewhat mended. Someone went through and stitched a little stitch on each side so it doesn't unravel. And I thought, that's very meticulous. That's kind of strange if you have a cut and you do that, take that time. I thought, that's really cool. And I kept opening it and realized there's a selvage up here and a selvage down here. This piece is only 14 inches wide. And I was thinking, that truly is a hand-woven Japanese fabric. They would make things in a narrower loom. And that's why kimonos are made a certain way. It's like they would have these panels, like the front panel, the other front panel, and then, I mean, the old kimonos, and the sleeves were in these 14-inch panels. This truly is a Japanese woven fabric, and it is woven. It's not printed. You could see it on both sides. This is absolutely amazing. I'm just so thrilled. I'm so honored to have found it and rescued it from being considered waste. And I have to include this part because someone really did take the time to try to at least hold it together to be worked. This is amazing. I just had to share this because it truly is a connection to the artisan who wove this. Anyway, so I just wanted to share that observation. It's so cool. So I have all the pieces cut out for the blue bag, and I will give all the sizes in the description below, as well as on my website, LyndaCreates.com. That's Linda with a Y. I am going to match up. I'm going to pin it first. The 1/4 inch seam. So you want to piece it vertically first. And it's sort of, this part is sort of like a patchwork quilt. Okay, so that, and then this will, I'll do the vertical pinning after I sew the horizontals. So I was going to sew this on a sewing machine, sew all these seams, I have them pinned, and I decided that I would rather hand stitch it, but I need to do it fairly accurately. I need the sizes to be the right size. So what I did, move these aside, I took a piece of washi tape and I measured it. I cut a little piece that's exactly 1/4 of an inch wide. So now when I sew this seam, let me move this a little bit. When I sew this seam, I could just hold it right there and I know where 1/4 of an inch is. So instead of doing a sewing machine exactly 1/4 of an inch, I'm doing a measurement via my thumbnail. And I'm going to do a back stitch going across because I do want it to be fairly strong. And I'm using thread. I'm going to finish this seam, and then I'm going to be sewing them together, and I will be back and show you that. Okay, so I sewed this seam, and now I'm going to sew the verticals together. I was originally going to do it this way, have this pattern at the bottom, but I accidentally sewed this piece on upside down. So now I have to go that way. So that, okay. So my next thing is to iron these seams open, which I'll go do right now, and then I'll sew that seam together and just keep it moving along. Isn't that pretty? I now have the sun peeking in through the window and brightening my desk. But what I wanted to talk about real quick was that before I sew up the vertical seams here, I wanted to add a little tag or something into the seam or area. So I was looking at the fabric and I found this little symbol. To me it looks like a little dog, but I think it's supposed to say the number 1. I'm not sure, but I want to use that as my little tag. So I want to give a little bit of room for it to fold under. But this way, I can turn in a bit of a seam. Okay. Okay. What I can do, first off, I was going to sew it into the seam. Okay. So let's do this. It's going to go So I decided to do a little basting stitch. I guess it's, sometimes I call it a tacking strip, sometimes a basting stitch. Oh, that's interesting. When I started filming this, the sun was all over my table. And now it is almost completely off. Okay. So there at least is my basting stitch. As I pin it in here someplace, I'm going to go up a little bit. Just like that. Down. Let's stitch it down while I have a little bit of white thread on my needle. So I have the little tag stitched down now, which I really like the way that's going. Flip it over to sew this seam. Now this is going to be one of those 1/4 inch seams that my marker won't show up on the dark fabric, so I'm going to have to use my thumbnail method. The other part that's going to be interesting is because I'm doing this as a running stitch and coming back. Okay, I'm just going to keep going and I'll show you when I get there. I have the vertical stitched in there. I have my tag. So I'll give these 2 seams a good iron, and I have everything tacked down in place right now. I'm going to start some slow stitching. So I'm going to start, and I'm using my go-to slow stitching thread of this Boro crochet cotton. I like the weight of it. So I'm going to do some, it can be called kantha stitching. Again, it's a technique, or because this is a Japanese fabric and a Japanese rice bag, I'm going to call it the Boro stitching. Now, I don't know a lot of Japanese words, but growing up, my mom used to use the term boro boro, which meant like tattered. Something is tattered and worn out. But she always used it in twice. So it was never, she never says boro. She would always say boro boro. And that, again, usually meant like clothing or a rag that was too worn out to be useful. So I'm guessing that that is where the term Boro stitching came from, because it was used to repair tattered fabrics and making them useful again. So that's just a little bit of Japanese that I don't know if that's true or not, but I always wanted to clarify that that's what my mom used to say. And another thing, and I'm not sure again if this is true, is that she always said boro as in, or boro boro as in tattered, but sometimes there were Japanese terms that were more for the sound of something than a descriptive. So if you think about it, something that's tattered would have a rough texture, which would be the boro boro kind of, if you hear the word rippling off your tongue, it sounds very, it has a tattered sound. So I don't know if the word actually came about because of the sound of what tattered fabric can be described as. I don't know. I could be totally wrong. But my little bit of Japanese that I picked up from my mother, that is one of those things. So I'm just going to keep doing this stitching. It's a running stitch, but the technique of patching a worn fabric, especially in Japanese style, is Boro style. And for the design of it too, I am going a little bit outside of where the patch is. I just think it looks really, it makes it really stand out that this is an intentional patch. So I'm just going to sit and stitch. I finished my first piece of Boro stitching here, and I have another large piece here, but I also plan to do some stitching on some other sections, so I guess I could do this next. It kind of needs it next. Okay, so I'll work on that piece, but I love the way this one turned out. I finished stitching this area right here, this patch. I'm just loving how it looks. So let me pull back a little bit. So I have this area here, and I have this area here, and I was trying to decide where I would do a little more stitching. I have a lot of choices, but I didn't want to stitch just for the sake of stitching. So like this had a nice pattern already. This had a nice pattern. Here, I didn't need to do any stitching because it's already vertical. I could do a little up here, but I don't know. It might take away from this beautiful tan fabric. So what I decided is that somewhere down here needed some stitching. Didn't want to compete with these lines just because it's going to be lined. So I decided that following this angle, I'm going to do just maybe 2 or 3 rows that follow this angle down. And we'll see how that goes. So I already have my needle in place. I just felt it needed something. There's a lot of open blue area right here. So far I like the way that's going, so maybe 3 rows, just keep it an odd number, and I think then I'll be done with the slow stitching part of it. I did 3 rows of kantha stitching down here, just enough to give it a little bit of interest right there. And I'm going to stop for now on this piece until I finish the next step. So I cut a piece of this fabric at 6.5 inches square, as well as doing some of the same interfacing on the inside at 6.5 inches square. So I have them pinned together. I'm going to do a basting stitch to hold it together. So, look, I need a needle. Let me open my needle book. There it is. First thing. Set that aside. And I'm basting on or tacking on the interfacing to the back side of the fabric on the bottom. So this is going to be the bottom of the bag. It will have, so the pretty side is facing out, just to clarify that. I need to cut one more piece of fabric for the bottom of the bag. I have the lining for it, which matches that. So this is the actual lining for the bottom of the bag, sorry, I should have had all these pieces cut first. So I need to cut another square like this, but at 6.5 inches square out of this fabric. So this is the end of part 1, showing the stitching and the cutting of the pieces. I have this ready to go, which is going to be the bottom of the bag when I'm ready to stitch it together. So it will we'll have it like this shape, kind of a square round, which I think is so cool. And then it'll have this on the bottom. But that is going to be part 2 of this series. But I wanted to make the first part just showing all the stitching that you can do, what you can add to it if you want to, anything like that, and how to lay out the pieces and adding the interfacing on the inside. So again, part 2 is going to be adding the lining, stitching together the lining, and then assembling the whole piece together, including the tabs that are going to hold the bag or hold the rope to close the bag. So I just wanted to thank everyone for watching this part 1 of my rice bag tutorial, and I hope you're enjoying that. And please come back and watch part 2, because that will show how it all comes together piece by piece. And please check out my website at LyndaCreates.com. That's Linda with the Y. And check out all the other slow stitching, embroidery, paper crafting, all kinds of different projects that I do. So I will see you in my next video. Bye!